Welcome to the fall winter 2024 edition of Book Buzz. Thank you for people joining on Zoom. Welcome to the evening edition. As I've said before, and I will say again, but don't tell the afternoon people, this is the much more fun edition because I've done it already and I've had a couple of glasses of wine and I'm going to have more and it's going to be really good. I want to give a shout out to the Axmayer family. I know members of the Axmayer family are on Zoom. Some of you remember our beloved Pat Axmayer, who died a few years ago, and whose family has very wonderfully sponsored this program so that we can continue to go out into the library and offer you the food and the booze that we do. We're so grateful. We love you. We're so grateful to them, and to the Library Wine Bar for supporting us and sponsoring this event. Let me start by saying that I'm aware that this event filled in a day, and I feel a little bit of pressure about that, and I'm just going to try to go with it. And I'm very honored that you love this so much. We love doing this too. The fall publishing season is typically the big season of the year. There really is a rhythm to the publishing year. The January and February tend to start off slow. Everyone is recovering from the holidays. People settle in, dark, short days, dark nights. People settle in with books, and then things sort of rev up as the light starts to change. And in March and April, some big summer releases start to come out. And the summer is the beach reads and the big books that people take on vacation with them. But fall is when the big guns come out, because publishers think of fall as the time when people buy books or think about buying books for holiday gift giving. And also they think, I think for some reason, that the books you read towards the end of the year are the books that, if you're a book influencer, which is a new thing that exists, if the books you read closer to the end of the year are the books you're more likely to say are your best books of the year. It just kind of becomes, it's a little bit of a catch-22, but it feeds on itself. So fall is typically the season when the big books of the year come out. I will tell you, and I don't want you to leave when I say this, that this fall has been a little different because of the election, and I'm pretty sure because of the election, because I think publishers are afraid that people are not going to be as caught up in book reading because they're really caught up in the election. Whatever your political persuasion, this election is a big deal. And I should say, I promise you will all be home or on Zoom ready to flip over to the debate. I'm going to go over 8, but I'm not going to go that much over that you won't be home for when the debate starts at 9. And thank you to Susan and others who emailed me to tell me it's not actually starting at 8, it's starting at 9. So we're good. I'm going to go way over. No, I'm not. So this publishing season is a little more. Some of you may remember that there was a year I slipped in 10 extra because it was so mega. It's not like that. Like, I think, and I know more about books that are coming out after the election. Usually the big books are out in September and October. And I can tell you there's some huge books coming out in November, and even December, January, February. We're going to talk about 4 books that are big that are coming out next year. That's unusual. And I think it's because of the election. But I promise you that doesn't mean there aren't really great books coming out. What has happened is that I used the list that the big book, the Times and the Post and the and Oprah and the other big book magazines and journals, they release most anticipated books of the year lists, and usually there's sort of a core group like this big that everyone agrees on, and then a ton of other books, and I have to try to sort through all that. This year there was this many that everyone agreed on. It's sort of a really clear overlap of books because there just aren't quite as many big books coming out, which made my life actually a little bit easier. It didn't settle on the 20th until Saturday. I had about 16, and then I started talking to people, and everyone had a different opinion, and I was like, I don't know, you'll see. I'll tell you about the few that I was hemming and hawing on, but I feel pretty good about the 20, but I didn't settle on them until Saturday. There are people who I know like to know what's going on behind the scenes. There are 9 handouts. If you haven't been here before, let me just quickly tell you, this is what a handout looks like. I've divided the books up by genre. There are 9 of them for this session. There's beach reads, which doesn't exist in the fall and winter for obvious reasons. And usually I have a short story and essay collection handout, and I didn't actually feel that there were enough of them to warrant a handout this time. So I folded in the short stories among the fiction handouts in the genre they related to, and the same with essays on the nonfiction side. So the 9 are literary fiction, popular fiction, mysteries, thrillers, historical fiction, other fiction, bio and memoir, history and politics, and other nonfiction. They all look like this. Shout out to Kristen Nusky, our publicity librarian who designed them. If you open them up, you will see that the books are listed in chronological order by publication date. You have the cover so you can easily find it, the title, the author, the publication date, and a 1-sentence description of each book. We will have them out on that far table over there. We have enough for everybody. I do not pay attention. This is not an extra credit. Like, look how many handouts I took. I don't care. I don't care. Drink more wine. Don't take any handouts. Really, I don't care. Take the handouts in the genres you really want to read. I will tell you that there are 59 books in each handout. The one that was the hardest to fit was bio and memoir. That handout is stacked. I gave Julie and 2 other people in the library, Kaylee and Katie, a list because I had 68 and I could not figure out how to whittle it down to 59. And I said, for extra credit, figure out which ones among them I'm going to pick as notables. All 3 of them picked different books. That is how there are 5 of the 20 we're going to talk about. 5 are in that handout. That was the hardest handout. 512 books in total. Okay. And we're going to talk about 20. Before we do the 20, and Barb and Julie have it, and I know you want to see the 20, but I have to talk about 2 books that aren't in the 20, but should be. And it's not because they're 21 and 22. They're because for different reasons, I didn't feel like I could include them, but they're very, very notable. Again, we're talking about books coming out from September to February. Okay. The first book I didn't include is this one. And if you were at the spring summer, Susan Gomes was like, Elizabeth Stroud. So Tell Me Everything by Elizabeth Stroud was the 20th book I talked about in the spring summer edition of Book Buzz. It was supposed to come out on August 13th. Okay, Elizabeth Stroud is a Pulitzer Prize winning author. If she says a book is coming out on August 13th, it's coming out on August 13th. In late May, after the most anticipated summer list came out with this book on it, it slipped to September 10th. Weird. Okay. I want to say I'm very proud of Wallingford. So, we put books, once we order a book, it's in our catalog. If you don't already know this, you don't have to wait for a book to come out to put it on hold. As soon as we've ordered it, it's in the catalog and you can place a hold. The number of holds on this book that were Wallingford holds is high because we'd already ordered it before the spring, summer Book Buzz, and you all went home and put it on hold. And I was so proud. I was so proud. The problem was it slipped. It slipped by a month. And not only did all those books, like they had to print retractions and issue new most anticipated summer lists that didn't include this book. Ann Patchett, and we're going to come back to her in a minute, Ann Patchett, for her bookstore, picked this book as its August pick. And then had to send out an oops email that said, we already have a September pick, so we're going to have 2 books in September and no books in August. Never happened before. And I was like, why? Why would a book like this slip? How weird. And a couple of weeks ago, and I've said this to Barb and Julie, a couple of weeks ago, I said, I wonder, I was watching, you know, I follow Oprah because she's a book person. And she was doing her book, you know, all of her book picks now are on Instagram. She picks a book, it's announced on social media, and then she does interviews with the author and book discussions on Instagram. And she's doing Familiaris by David Robrowski, which was a big surprise. No one was expecting that book. We all had to scramble to buy it. It's a really long book, and it was coming to a close. And I was thinking, she has to pick a big September. She's finishing around Labor Day. So that means she's going to pick a new book, and I wonder if she's going to pick a September release. I wonder if it's the Elizabeth Strout book, and that's why it slipped. Look at what this says on the book. It's the Oprah pick. It's the newest Oprah. It's the 107th Oprah pick, and it was announced today. This book came out today, and it was announced that it's the Oprah pick. So it was notable. It's even more notable now, but I can't include it because I included it in last time, and I'm not giving up a spot for a book I'd already included, but you got to read this book. Great book. Okay. New Oprah book club pick. Okay. The second book that I didn't include, and I really wanted to include it, really, is the reason I didn't include it is because it's not technically a new book. So I mentioned Ann Patchett a little while ago. I revere Ann Patchett, but a lot of people, that's not unique to me. She's a very, very popular writer now, but she wasn't always, you know, everyone starts at the beginning, and she had a small following at the beginning, but her breakout novel, and still one of her best novels, was Bel Canto, which came out in 2001, and was actually, if you paid attention to the New York Times 100 best books of the 21st century so far, was the only Ann Patchett novel on the list. And it's still a novel people read and talk about today. And earlier this year, her publisher, HarperCollins, asked her to reread the book. I know this because she did a video from her bookstore that she put out on social media in August, and she said, authors never reread their books, which I thought was really interesting. It's really interesting that authors never reread their books. And she said, so I reread it, and there were parts of it that I liked, and I thought, that was pretty good. And there were other parts that I read, and I was cringing, parts that she would redo or reorder or cross out completely. And HarperCollins asked her to annotate Bel Canto. So on November 5th, she's coming out. Wait, I want to show you how this is going to go. So imagine this is a normal size book. The book that's coming out on November 5th is this big. And all of this is white space, and she's going to write. She has handwritten notes in the margins of the book saying how it's like liner notes in an album, right? Saying how she feels about Bel Canto. Can you, so, okay, so that's notable, but I felt like that was a cheat, because it's not right. So I didn't include it, but I really wanted to. So you can buy the book anywhere. If you order it from her bookstore, she will personalize it for you. Extra, this is such a fun fact. In addition to that, they're doing a limited edition, special edition of that. That is, so the regular one is $40. If you get the limited edition one, it's $75, and it comes in one of those fancy box slipcase things, and it has marble end papers and the silk ribbon, and it's 1,000 copies only, and it's going to actually say 1 of 1,000, 2 of 1,000. So those are $75 a piece. So she says to HarperCollins, I want all 1,000 from my bookstore. And HarperCollins says it doesn't really work that way. And Ann Patchett says, I want all 1,000. So she got all 1,000 for her bookstore. She put 500 on for sale online the day she did this video. They sold out in an afternoon. And the other 500 are for sale in person at the store on November 5th. No, so I had this whole internal debate. You don't want to be in my mind when I'm having an internal debate about which one I wanted. And I decided I wanted the regular one with her signing it. It would be a great, right? And I'm thinking, because it's election day, that she's gonna want people to come into the store with the I voted sticker before she can, but those are gonna sell out in a day. But I decided I wanted the regular one that she signed because I didn't need the slip cover and I just wanted to be able to look at it. Yes, you can order it on anywhere, but you can go to her to Parnassus Books, which is her bookstore, and you can order it and you put in the notes that you want her to sign it to you, and she will, and then they'll send it to you. So those are the two that are not in the notable 20. Let's go to the ones that are. Barb and Julie are going to hand them out. On Zoom, we have a PowerPoint presentation that Rachel is going to share with the titles of the books. So you can, hopefully you have a pad and a piece of paper and a pen, and you can write down notes as I go. I can happily send you the notable 20 after we're done with this. Please, I want to say also on Zoom, use the chat. If you have questions, put them in the chat. If you have comments, put them in the chat. Rachel is sitting right next to me, and she's going to tell me everything that's going on in the chat. Right? Okay. Everyone has? Yeah. Okay. I also want to say, if you're in the room and you want more wine, if you're going home to watch the debate, please drink more wine before the debate. If you're at home, I hope you're drinking. Book Buzz is better with wine. It just is. Okay. I'm giving everyone in the room 10 seconds to finish looking at the notable 20, and then you have to stop looking because I'm going to talk to you about these books, and you don't have to look at the piece of paper. Okay. Let's get started. Okay. Eyes up. Okay, ready? First book. There it is. Okay. Zoom is seeing this. The first book is Creation Lake by Rachel Kushner. This is the book. It's in the literary fiction handout, and it came out last Tuesday, September 3rd. This is a book that I dithered about, which is not fair because it's everywhere. This is on every most anticipated book list that there is. It's been long listed for the Booker Prize. The shortlist comes out on Monday. It is widely expected to be shortlisted, and some of the British big book journals have already said that they think it's going to win. I do not personally think it's going to win, but that's just me. I'll tell you why I dithered in a second. So Rachel Kushner is a literary critic darling. She's been called the Joan Didion of this generation, the Don DeLillo of this generation. Literary critics love her. And it's very hard to be indifferent to her. You either love her or you don't. There's very little middle ground. This is her fourth novel. The other three have had huge successes. The Mars Room was shortlisted for the Booker and the National Book Critics Circle Award. Flamethrowers were shortlisted for the National Book Award. She also wrote a memoir in essays that was massively well received. She has a huge, huge following, and she writes novels that are about women who are tough and feisty and come up against not the patriarchy, but men in their orbit who, because they're men, can do more. And it's about the limits that those women face. That's her big theme. That's her big theme. Okay, so there you go. Creation Lake is about a 34-year-old woman named Sadie Smith. That is not her real name. We never actually find out her real name, who's a spy. And she used to work for the FBI, and an assignment didn't go so well. So she stopped working for the FBI, and she's been hired by, she doesn't know who, literally, she doesn't know who her employer is, to go to France. Keep drinking. To go to France and infiltrate an eco-environmental tourist group, commune, that is living in southwestern France, in a very rural part of France, to infiltrate it and try to bring it down. That's her assignment. And she does that and she gets right in with the group. And we follow her adventures. Two things, she's not as good a spy as she thinks she is. And the group's sort of father figure is this wackadoo named Bruno, who is in his 80s and who was a radical in France during the 60s, and who lives in a cave and thinks that the Neanderthals had it going on and that humans need to learn. I know, I'm looking at Elizabeth's face, she's like, what are you talking about? Okay, you have to just, I don't even know what to say. So I have read this. This is a mashup of literary fiction and thriller, right? And spy thriller. That's what this is. The reviews are gushy, gushy, gushy. The Times, the Globe, the Boston Globe, the Washington Post, the Los Angeles Times, gushy, gushy, gushy. And I still was dithering about whether or not to include it because I wasn't really sure it was a Wallingford kind of book. And then this happened. This is not the Sunday book review of the New York Times. This is the styles section of the Times. This is the Sunday before Labor Day. This is Rachel Kushner on the cover, taking up the entire page of the styles section of the Times. And then there was a full page article about her. And I was like, that's it. I can't. It's on every most anticipated list. It's getting gushy reviews. I have to include it. Okay. So book number 1 is Creation Lake by Rachel Kushner. So, okay, no one asked me that in the afternoon session, which I thought was good. I am not in the camp. Remember what I said, you either love her or you don't? I don't. She just doesn't work for me. I liked it. I came to it with low expectations because I'm not, and I actually, the Bruno cave stuff wasn't really my cup of tea, but the spy stuff kept me going. I do think it will be shortlisted for the Booker. This year, if you are interested in the Booker Prize, which is the preeminent literary fiction prize in the English-speaking world, I've now read all of the books on the long list. It's actually a very strong long list. I really think it's very good. There's something for everyone. So if you're interested in that, come see me and we can talk about it. Okay, book 2 is The Life Impossible by Matt Haig. So brief pause for a little bit of publisher industry intel. Think about the top publishers, Penguin Random House, Simon & Schuster, the biggies, right? And also they all own each other. So if you wind up the top 10 trade publishers in the United States, I don't know how many books they publish a year. It's a lot, right? 2/3 sell fewer than 1,000 copies. Okay, and less than 4% sell more than 20,000 copies. These are just statistics. That's the state of books today. So if I see in a pre-pub alert that a book has a first print of 25,000, then that means the publisher thinks it's going to be in the top 4% of all books sold that year. 50,000, 75,000. I see that all the time. Those are the books I pay attention to for that reason. Keep those numbers in your head as we go, because I'm going to give you some mind-blowing statistics that only are mind-blowing if you understand what I just said to you. Okay? In 2020, Matt Haig wrote a novel called The Midnight Library. It was a notable 20. I just want to say, props to me. It has sold 9 million copies in 58 languages. I did not even know there were 58 languages that a book could be translated into. Okay? It spent over 100 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. That's 2 years. That's 2 years. Okay? Matt Haig could have written the telephone book and it would be notable. This is his first book since Midnight Library. It is set on the island of Ibiza, the Spanish island of Ibiza. Matt Haig is a very interesting man. He's written a lot and he's a very successful author. He was diagnosed with ADHD and being on the autism spectrum when he was 46 years old. And when he was younger, he was suicidally depressed. And he wrote a book called Reasons to Stay Alive, a memoir about that. That was a big bestseller. The depression hit him when he and his then partner, now wife, were on Ibiza. And he has not returned to Ibiza till now. And he wrote this book about Ibiza. I need my notes because he said something super interesting about that I want to read to you. He said this book was kind of therapy for me in the sense that it was about embracing life again, embracing the world again, dealing with your past. I want readers to feel like it's a book about possibilities. This is about a 72-year-old woman who is a widow and not handling the loss of her husband well. Many decades earlier, she lost her 11-year-old son in a tragic bike accident. She's never recovered from that. She lives a very, very small life. When she gets word that she has inherited a house on Ibiza from a woman she knew ages ago who went and lived on Ibiza, and she's like, what? And she goes to Ibiza, and it's about what happens when she goes there. If you read Midnight Library, which I assume many of you did, you know that he brings the fantastical into his books. There is definitely the fantastical into this book. I will just say that it's about telepathy. So if you're interested in that, you should definitely read it. I read it over the weekend. It's very moving. It made me want to go to Ibiza, actually, which I've never wanted to do before because, you know, I think of it as clubbing, but there's actually much more to it than that. And so there it is. There's already a lot of holds on the library system on this one. It's going to be a big deal, obviously. Okay, that's in the other fiction handout, and it came out last Tuesday. Book 3 came out today, and I have not read it yet. Liane Moriarty's Here One Moment. Liane Moriarty is a force of nature. She's written 7 novels. All of them have been #1 New York Times bestsellers. And I think the last 3 have been made into TV miniseries: Big Little Lies, Nine Perfect Strangers, and Apples Never Fall. So basically anything she does is now a mega bestseller. This is the popular fiction handout. And I just want to say, you know, we partner, in case you don't know, the Wallingford has partnered with the Library Speakers Consortium, which brings A-list authors virtually live, but virtual to you. She is going to be the next Library Speakers Consortium author. She's scheduled for Saturday, the 21st at 7 p.m. I'm guessing that she's in Australia, so that's probably Sunday morning her time. So it's weird that it's a Saturday, but you can sign up for that on our events calendar. And if you don't know how to do that, let me know. I will tell you, so I checked this out today. I'm going to read it. It's 500 pages. But I will tell you that I think we've seen this theme before. And what's interesting to me is that it's coming back around. Here's the plot. There's an ordinary plane ride. Group of people get on, group of people get off. The plane's on time. There's no turbulence. There's a very nondescript, unmemorable woman on the plane, and she spends the flight telling the people on the plane the date they're going to die. And for 6 of the passengers on that plane, that date is soon. And then time passes and they start dying, like she said. I'm right. So, uplifting. So this is about right. This is about destiny. This is about free will. This is about what you would do with your life, what you might do differently or not if you knew when you were going to die. Obviously, like there's people for people on Zoom, there's people in the room going, no, but you know, it's a very interesting question. And we have seen this in other books, and it is coming back up. So obviously, this is touching on a pulse somewhere about the way you lead your life and what you might change if you actually knew when you were going to die. Okay, I get. There's a lot of people saying I don't want to know, and I understand, but nevertheless, okay. Book 4. is, which I wish I had in my hand, but I do not, is We Solve Murders by Richard Osman. This is in the mystery handout. It's coming out next Tuesday, September 17th. So Richard Osman, I actually think that the notable 20 should be called the notable 19 plus Osman. Because since 2020, every fall, he has written a book that has been one of the notable 20s, and I have not been wrong about that. Somebody in the afternoon said, do you ever go back and look at your 20 and see how you did? And the answer is yes, because I'm a lunatic. And I have not been wrong about Richard Osman. He was not that well known here before 2020, but he's a British television personality. He's not an actor, but he's like a presenter or a host on talk shows or game shows. And he's very charming. He's very charismatic, and he's very funny and self-deprecating. And in 2020, he wrote a cozy crime novel. And I'm not sure I would say it's really cozy because it's a little dark, called The Thursday Murder Club. And I'm seeing nods, but if you have not read it, please go and read Thursday Murder Club, because it's wonderful. It's about a group of 4 people who live in a very nice retirement community, who meet weekly to talk about cold crimes, and then the crime, of course, happens and they solve it. And the book was so successful that every year since then, he has churned out another one, and they have all, I'm not kidding, it doesn't usually happen like this, but they have all been fantastic. Fantastic. The 4, remember this publishing statistics I told you about, the 4 books in the Thursday Murder Club series so far have sold over 10 million copies and broken UK sales records for the genre. As we speak, Netflix is filming a series based on the books, starring Helen Mirren, Ben Kingsley, Pierce Brosnan, and Celia Imrie, directed by Chris Columbus and produced by Steven Spielberg. If I had tried to make this up, you would not have believed me. And there's a whole host of other actors who are in it in smaller parts. Everyone wanted to be a part of this. Okay, so these books are mega. What did he do? Did he write book? Is We Solve Murders book number 5? No. This is what he said. I put them is the 4 characters, through quite a lot in the last book, The Last Devil to Die. That's true. If you've read The Last Devil to Die, that was a really, really emotive book. So I've given them a year. This is his characters he's talking about. I've given them a year just to relax, kick back, and rejuvenate. But they'll be coming back in 2025. Okay, so We Solve Murders is a brand new series. He's the first book in a new series. Like, this is not normal, okay? When you have a fabulous hit, you just keep going. He put it over there, and he wrote a new book that he's hoping will be well received and that he will keep going with. It is about a daughter-in-law and father-in-law who open up a detective agency that's called We Solve Murders. The daughter-in-law is a private security guard, and when we meet her, she's on a private island, because why not, where she stumbles on a dead body and a bag of cash, as you do. And who does she call? She calls her father-in-law, who's a retired cop. And they go on some global, insane, so this is sort of a mashup of cozy crime and thriller. And this is about what happens. The book is already out in the UK, rave reviews. No reason not to think it's going to be huge. The other thing I will tell you, and Tisha, I assume you're watching, but this is not about you, I promise. He is coming to the US for 1 week to visit 4 bookstores on the East Coast, including R.J. Julia, which I could not believe when I heard about it. And I immediately went to R.J. Julia's website and bought a ticket. It's September 24th, which is the Tuesday, the week after the book comes out. 5 minutes after I bought the ticket, I realized I had a conflict. And I am actually in agony about it because I have heard him, I've done virtual authors events with him and he's so great. He is, the ticket includes, it's not free, but it includes the book and he's actually, which not all big authors do, he's gonna stay and he's gonna sign the books. So I can't change the conflict because I'm running a book discussion in West Hartford, which I have to do. So I'm giving first dibs. If anyone wants, no, I will give you the ticket if you want the ticket. Here are the conditions, right? You get to go, you get the book. You can even read the book before me, but you have to stand on the signing line and get him to sign it. That's the deal. That's the deal. If you want it, come see me. Tisha, my friend Tisha said she'd do it, but she didn't really want to, and I said she didn't have to. So if no one wants it, I'll just tell RJ Julia to get it. You want it? You can have it. Come see me after. Okay, that is that
full enough?
I know you need this.
I need this. I need this. I'm going to drink this whole glass while we're here watching. That's terrible. Cheers, everybody. The rosé is really good. Okay. So that's book 4. We saw murders. Okay. Book 5 is Intermezzo by Sally Rooney, which is coming out on the 24th and is in the literary fiction handout. I want to say this, and I know this sounds like a crazy thing or an exaggeration. Sally Rooney is the most talked about author of her generation. She just is. She's the one. She's in her nodding over here. She's in her 30s. She's the one. She's written 3 novels. They've all been huge. Probably the one you might know the best is Normal People, which was turned into a TV series, very successful TV series. If you are a book influencer, which I aspire to be, publishers just send you advanced reader you don't have to ask. They just send you advanced reader copies of book, hoping that you'll say something about them on social media. In order to get an advanced reader copy of Intermezzo, you had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Okay, that's insane. The bookstores, she's Irish, so the bookstores in England and Ireland are having midnight release parties, like Harry Potter style midnight release parties for this book. Okay, RJ Julia is having a big day on the 24th because they're going to have they're normal. They're not going to have a midnight release party, but they're going to have an afternoon release party on the 24th for this book, and then Richard Osman in the evening. So it's really good month for RJ Julia. I will say that I'm in my 60th year, and I'm not as interested as I used to be in books about 30-something people. I read them, but I'm not sure, I don't necessarily identify. I identify more with, menopause type books and other books like that. But this, and Sally Rooney does tend to write, I like her books. I've read all 3 of them and I really like her. This book really sounds good. This is about 2 brothers, not very close, a 30-something extroverted, very successful lawyer, and a 20-something introverted chess prodigy who have no real relationship, but whose father has just died. And they come together to deal with that and to deal with the fallout from that. And it's about how they discover, how they relate to each other and how they discover that maybe they're not as different as they think. The early reviews are glowing, say this is her best book, which is a high bar. This is one quote I want to read you from one review. This novel is a beautifully crafted meditation on the in-between moments, I love that often carry the most weight, reminding us that life is as much about the pauses as it is about the crescendos. I love that, and I really think this is going to be a great book. Okay. Book 6 is the first nonfiction book we're going to talk about. Who's this? Who's this? Ina Garten. Ina Garten. This is the September 9th issue of the New Yorker. Huge profile of her. Why? Because her memoir, Be Ready When the Luck Happens is coming out on October 1st. This is the first of the 5 books in the Violin Memoir handout. Susan Gomes cannot wait to read this book. So so Ina Garten is really a cultural icon at this point, right? 13 Barefoot Contessa cookbooks, all bestsellers. She owns the Barefoot Contessa. She's a Food Network star and a phenom. But she's never written a memoir, and she said this was very difficult for her to write. And the profile is not an excerpt from the book, it's a profile of her. But you know, when she bought the Barefoot Contessa food store in the Hamptons, she was working in the White House doing budgets for nuclear energy projects. I mean, it's crazy. She talks about her husband Jeffrey all the time. They met when she was 16. And she talks in the memoir about actually their marriage had some rocky parts, which no one knows because she gushes about him. She is going on tour for this book. She's going to be at the Bushnell on December 4th. I'm pretty sure it's sold out. Almost all of her tour spots are sold out, but she's been adding more because she wants to reach people. This is going to be a huge, huge book. She's narrating the audiobook, which we will get. And there you go. That's book 6.
I just want to say 1 year I will sign up for Halloween.
Oh, that's awesome. So Kate just said she was eyeing up for Halloween. That's great. Okay. Book 7 is The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden in the Thriller handout, also coming out on October 1st. Some number of book buzzes ago, I talked about Colleen Hoover. Colleen Hoover, right? Colleen Hoover was an author who'd been around for a while, writing books. She had a little following. People didn't really know who she was. And then some TikTok, book talk influencer raved about one of her books. And all of a sudden, she was it. This is the world we live in today. And everyone wanted to read that book, and everyone wanted to read all of the books, and all of the libraries were scrambling to get her backlist, and the publishers were scrambling to put her books back in print. So Frida McFadden is the new Colleen Hoover. Okay. A writer of psychological thrillers, who had been around for a while, had a little bit following, not a big deal. And an influencer highlighted her book, The Housemaid. My tushy, we don't have it. Look into this right away. So I mean, okay. So I love that. I love that comment. I love that comment. So this is what happens, right? So when a book explodes unexpectedly, libraries go to their distributor and say, we need the book. And the distributor's like, I don't have the book. Like books these days are not on demand, but no one wants to risk putting so much money to print a cajillion copies if only 1,000 are going to get sold. So she was not someone, right? So you go to our distributor and you say, I want The Housemaid, and it's on back order. And back order means months these days because it's not being printed in the United States anymore. It's being printed God knows where and coming and love her. So she's this is a thriller. A thriller is a page turner that you can't stop. Okay. She's written 3 books in the Housemaid series. The last one came out this summer. The Housemaid is Watching, and the Library Speakers Consortium had her. She was really good. She's a psychologist. More people from Wallingford watched that program than any other Library Speakers Consortium we've had. Okay, she is She's, right? She's it right now. That's what I said. So her new book is the book. Does it matter what her new book is about? Not really. But it's about a woman in New York who's single. She's had terrible luck trying to date. And she meets this wonderful man. He's good looking, he's charming, he's a doctor. And he sweeps her off her feet and life is great. But meanwhile, there's this guy up and down the East Coast dating women and then killing them. And she starts to wonder if maybe he's a little too good to be true. Okay, that's it. But again, it's going to be huge because she's happening. No, the Housemaid is 3 books. The Housemaid Housemaid's Secret, and The Housemaid is Watching. Those are the books that have really, those are the her bestsellers. Okay. Yeah.
So when you have a book like that, how many does the one work?
So that's a great question. The question for Zoom is how many books do we order if we think it's going to be big? So, I order the fiction for the library. We get 2 sets of lists from our distributor. One is called Popular, so the James Pattersons and the David Baldaccis and the Daniel Steeles, all the books in the popular fiction handout. And I order several copies of each of those 6 months in advance, and you could put them on hold then. The other books, I take an educated guess. So the Matt Haig and the Elizabeth Strout, I picked up a couple copies, more than one. We got, so I probably bought 2 to start, and then we bought more. So what happens is I also watch the hold lists and see we are very blessed. You all know that we are very blessed with our library in Wallingford, but the budget gives me the ability to buy. So Kristen Hanna's The Women, that's an example. That was a notable book. I had picked up 2 copies before it came out. 2 weeks before it came out, there were 200 holds on the book. I picked up 2 more copies. And then I kept watching we have 7 copies of that book. Because we're very lucky. Now, I will say that, again, because of what's going on in the publishing industry, if I go to our distributor, Baker & Taylor, and I say, oh, I see The Wedding Planner. That's a book that came out this summer and is unexpectedly doing, like, no one knew this author. It sounded good. We bought it, and it has 280 holds in the system. So I said, oh, we need to get more copies. Baker & Taylor, it's on back order because they're not buying. They're being very conservative in the number of copies. Publishers are being very conservative in the number of copies of books they print. And our distributor is being so yes, we can get them from Amazon. And when that happens, we do. And we get them the next day and we process them ourselves and we put them in circulation because we're lucky that we have the ability to do that. But we're taking the most educated guesses we can. And we're watching and trying to add more as we need.
You can take into consideration.
So the question for Zoom is, do we take into consideration how many books Lion has? Yes and no. We give priority to Wallingford holds. So if there are 15 Wallingford holds and we have 2 copies, I'll get another one. Because we can't wait, we can't rely on Lion because they are going to fill their patrons' hold first. And again, we're lucky to have the money to be able to do that. Thank the mayor. Yes, or that.
Some of these books I have a lot. Like when I'm done with the books, I usually just circulate them once a month. Friends, not even donate them to the library.
So the question is, if you read a book, you own a book, can you give it to the library? We don't typically put used books into circulation, but we do gratefully take them in our used bookstore where they will sell immediately.
Yeah.
And all the money that the used bookstore raises funds our Sunday hours, which the town does not fund. So the more money we raise there, the more we can be open on Sundays. Just FYI. We're good? Keep going? Okay. Book 8 is Revenge of the Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. That is coming out October 1st and is in the other nonfiction handout. Malcolm Gladwell is a fabulous writer. He typically writes wonderful pieces for the New Yorker. And he has written several books. His biggest breakthrough book was called The Tipping Point. It came out in 2000, and it examined the societal things is a very big word, that cause items or concepts to tip, to go from being niche little things to big things. He wrote that book before social media, right? The internet existed in 2000, but the concept of social media and influencers really didn't. But the book was huge, and I highly recommend it if you haven't read it. It's fascinating to read, really well written, and it talks about what causes things to go from being a little hipster dipster thing to a big fad that suddenly everyone wants to have. And it's really interesting. He's also the guy that came up with the 10,000 hour rule about, right, that you need 10,000 hours to get good at something, using the Beatles or Bill Gates as an example. He's got his finger on the pulse of these sort of societal, really interesting social science issues. In Revenge of the Tipping Point, he says, I still do not understand many things about social epidemics. And he goes back in this book to revisit the tipping point and see how his theories about that have stood the test of time. And also he also looked at the people, which he didn't really look at in the tipping point, the people who are responsible for what he calls cultural contagions, which is a really interesting way to put it. The people who make a decision on purpose or by accident that wind up shaping or reshaping some social phenomenon. I'm telling you, his books are fabulous, and he really is fascinating in what he tells us about social norms and the way people think and act and react. And he bookends this book with the opioid epidemic, which of course is really important. And I think this is going to be a huge book. Okay, book 9 is From Here to the Great Unknown by Lisa Marie Presley. Great. We're running over, apparently.
Shocking.
I'm just going to keep drinking right now, and I hope you're all sticking with me. How is that possible? I don't understand.
Thank you.
If you need to leave, I'm sorry. I don't understand. I don't know how that's possible. Okay. So Lisa Marie Presley, the daughter of Elvis Presley and Priscilla Presley, she died in January of 2023. She was 54 years old. And before she died, she had been for years working on a memoir. And she'd actually been recording stories of her life, not writing them down, but there are recordings of growing up in Graceland, moving to LA to live with her mother after her father died in 1977, her marriage to the musician Danny Keough, and her marriage to Michael Jackson, and all of the insanity of her life. When she died, her daughter Riley Keough listened to these recordings and transcribed them into this book, which of course, as you can imagine, is getting all kinds of anticipatory buzz. It's coming out on October 8th. It's in the bio and memoir handout. And I'm just going to keep going because we're running really late. Okay. Book 10 is Framed by John Grisham and Jim McCluskey. I'm just going to keep going. Okay. I don't need to say anything more about that because hello. Okay. Right. Okay. This is in the other, so John Grisham, of course, is the mega best-selling author of legal thrillers, but this book is in the other nonfiction handouts. It's coming on October 15th. Jim McCluskey, who partnered with John Grisham on writing this book, was at the Princeton Theological Seminary, studying to become a minister. And he did field work at a local prison. And when he was at the prison, he met a prisoner who he came to believe was wrongly convicted of murder. And he decided that he was going to try to get this guy exonerated. He had no legal background whatsoever, but he succeeded in getting this guy exonerated. And he founded a nonprofit Innocence Project organization called the Centurion Ministries. And that's how John Grisham met him. And this book, Framed, is 10 true crime stories of people who had been unjustly convicted and how they were exonerated or not. And what they focus on is, you know, we live in a country of innocence until proven guilty, but once you are found guilty, getting that overturned is almost impossible. And they look at the societal and racial factors that come into verdicts and how they got through getting these 10 people freed. So, you know, Wallingford is a big true crime town. They love true crime. It's John Grisham. This is going to be a big book. Okay. Another, where's this one? Okay. Who's this? Who's this? Al Pacino. Al Pacino. I hope on Zoom you can see this. Barbara Cangiano and I have been talking about this picture. I don't want you to know what this picture does to me. This is Al Pacino in 1972. Okay, everything about this picture screams 1972 to me. Look at his hair. Look at what he's. Look at the chest. Look at everything about the picture. This is the September 2nd issue of the New Yorker. This is an excerpt from his new memoir, Sonny Boy, which is coming out on October 15th. This is obviously in bio and memoirs. This covers his growing up in the South Bronx, his going to the high school for the performing arts, which is the same school, his years in the avant-garde theater scene, off Broadway, and his breakthroughs with the Godfather movies and Serpico and Dog Day Afternoon. This is what he said. I wrote Sonny Boy to express what I've seen and been through in my life. It has been an incredibly personal and revealing experience to reflect on this journey and what acting has allowed me to do and the world it has opened up. My whole life has been a moonshot, and I've been a pretty lucky guy so far. He's 84 years old, which is crazy. And this book is going to be huge. And also he narrates the audiobook, which we will have. Okay. All right. Book 12 is Patriot by Alexei Navalny. It's coming out on October 22nd. This is in bio and memoir. Who knows who he was? The Russian activist, dissident, pro-democracy guy who was unbelievably critical of the Putin regime. The Kremlin did everything they could to shut him down. They poisoned him. And when he was in Germany recovering from the poison, he started writing this memoir. He went back to Russia, which everyone was shocked about in 2021 because they knew what was going to happen to him. The minute he stepped off the plane, he was arrested. In 2023, he was sentenced to 19 years in prison. Early this year, he appeared at a prison in the Arctic, above the Arctic Circle, somewhere in Russia, and within days he was dead. And, you know, Russia sent out that he died of natural causes, but honestly, nobody believes that. This memoir he wrote most of it. He dictated parts of it. His widow, who is in Germany, worked with the publishers to edit and finish it. It is being released. There's a 500,000 copy first print. It is being released in 11 different languages around the world on the same day, including in Russia. And you know, anyone who works on this book is gonna be on the hit list in the Kremlin. That's how sensitive this is. This is gonna be huge. This is gonna be huge. Huge. Yes. But I mean, right, he couldn't been part of, Russia was never gonna let him go, ever. They should have released, okay, but it's coming out on October 22nd. Okay. Cause it's a Tuesday and books come out in the US on Tuesday. Okay, book 13, Heartbreak is a National Anthem by Rob Sheffield, coming out on November 12th. This is another nonfiction. I do not know whether anyone in this room is a Taylor Swift fan. But even if you're not, or on Zoom you're not, you may be, you may not be, you have a member of your family who is, or you have friends who are. Okay? She is a cultural phenomenon around the world. People are obsessed with her. There is literally no, even the Beatles do not compare to her impact. Okay? She, phenomenon, economic phenomenon, music phenomenon, cultural phenomenon, a teenage girl, she isn't any longer, who is the world's favorite pop star, favorite songwriter, favorite guitar hero, favorite live performer. She has changed the way music is made and music is heard, right? You cannot argue with these facts. For 2 decades, she is it. She's most loved and most criticized female woman. I almost want to say woman in the world. Rob Sheffield is a legendary music journalist. He writes for Rolling Stone. He's an incredible writer. If you have not read him, he has some fabulous books. You should go check him out. He has been following her since the beginning. This is the very first book that's taking a deep dive on her, not just her musical impact, but her cultural impact, okay? Everyone's buying this book for every Swiftie they know. This is huge.
Eileen Axmeyer is a Swiftie.
Eileen, I knew it. You have to buy this book and buy this book for your kids. Seriously, this is the Taylor Swift book. This is it, okay? Somebody in the afternoon session was like, yes, she's a phenom, so why did you take up space in the notable 20 with her? You know what? I didn't even know what to say. I didn't know what to say. Okay. Book 14. Now, so this book, see this book? This is a UK book. This is called The Golden Mole. It's by Catherine Rundell, and it came out in the UK in 2022. Okay. It won the British Book of the Year award. That is not a nothing, people. Okay. And she won Author of the Year award. Okay. Catherine Rundell is a scholar. She wrote a book about John Donne. Nobody reads about John Donne. John Donne, which won the most prestigious award that there is for nonfiction books written in English. She has written a slew of bestsellers for children, including a book that just came out today in the US called Impossible Creatures, about fabulous animals. This book is coming out in the US finally on November 12th, called Vanishing Creatures. This is called The Golden Mole and Other Vanishing Treasures. So in the US it's coming out just as Vanishing Treasures. I don't know why. It started out as essays she wrote for the London Review of Books about endangered species. Pat Lorenzo, pay attention to this. Okay. These are short. I know how you feel about animals. I want you to see this. I'm passionate about this book because I've read it. Look at these pictures of these animals. Okay. 22 animals that are endangered. Each essay is no more than 10 pages long. Look, wait, hold on. This is the elephant, okay? She tells you stories about these animals. She tells you about, about the stories we tell about these animals and how humans have interacted with them over the centuries. Yeah, I know, right? You can take this with you, and why they are endangered. The proceeds from the sale of this book are going to nonprofit organizations that are working with the environment, half land, half sea. This book is incredible and very, very important and topical. Okay. So that's book 14. Okay. You can have it. You can borrow it. You can't keep it. Book 15, I can do in 30 seconds. Share. Hello. Everyone needs to look at the cover of this book. Look at her. Share the memoir part 1 coming out on November 19th in Bio and Memoir. Cher is the only woman to top the Billboard charts in 7 consecutive decades. She has an Oscar, she has an Emmy, she has Grammys up the wazoo. She's got a Kennedy Center honor. She has been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. She is an icon. This book covers her youth, her dysfunctional, loving but dysfunctional family, and her life with Sonny Bono, her marriage, her professional relationship with him, why it broke down. Book 2 is going to cover everything else, and it is coming out next November. She is reading the audiobook of this. This is going to be huge. Okay. Book 16 is The Serviceberry by Robin Wall Kimmerer. It's coming out on the 19th. It's an other nonfiction. Who read Braiding Sweetgrass? Braiding Sweetgrass? And Pete? Yes. Susan Gomes. Braiding Sweetgrass. Go get it. Why does that look? Braiding Sweetgrass. So Robin Wall Kimmerer is a botanist and a member of the Potawatomi Native American tribe. And Braiding Sweetgrass is about the reciprocal relationship between humans and the natural world. It's a quiet book. It's a little book. It's a beautiful book, and it sold hundreds of thousands of copies. It's an example of a book that publishers don't know what to do with, that just goes viral by word of mouth. I love that. This is her new book, and it is about the serviceberry, the tree, right? The tree with the little red, the bright red berries on it. It opens with her picking the berries off the tree, and the birds are also eating the berries off the tree. And she's thinking about how wonderful it is that nature gives us this bounty. And she moves from gratitude to reciprocity. What do we do? How do we thank nature for this? We water the tree, we weed around it. We maybe indirectly, we donate to the local land trust to support initiatives like this. And then she goes to, how do we pay it forward? Maybe I take the berries from the tree and I bake a pie and I give it to my neighbor, and my neighbor shares it with his friend, and the friend goes and volunteers in a food pantry. This is her image of a serviceberry world where we are grateful and reciprocal. She gives examples. Public libraries, great example. YouTube videos. How many of you have watched a YouTube video to learn how to do something? They're free. I have learned so much from YouTube videos, but they're free. Free farm stands. This is her vision. And the same way that Braiding Sweetgrass went viral, I think that this book will also go viral. Okay. So I want to say the next 4 books are huge fiction releases that are all coming out next year. Again, think about what I said at the beginning. Why big fiction releases coming out in January and February? Very unusual. I cannot tell you that these were on most anticipated lists, because most anticipated lists don't include 2025. But trust me when I tell you these are all going to be big. The first one is More or Less Maddie by Lisa Genova, which is coming out on January 14th as in literary fiction. Lisa Genova is a neuroscientist. You do not hear me say very often that a neuroscientist writes great fiction. Okay, that's unusual, but she writes books about people who have mental health disorders. And she writes them from the point of view of the person with the disorder, and they are not up here, they are super accessible. Her big book was Still Alice, which I suspect many of you have read, about a professor who has Alzheimer's. That was made into a movie starring Julianne Moore. She won an Oscar for it, a fabulous book. This new book tackles bipolar disorder, which is something that I think is really topical. Her main character in this book is a college freshman, so not some older person, a young person from Connecticut, perfect family, I'm guessing Fairfield County, goes to NYU, and is overwhelmed. Breaks up with her boyfriend, New York City, Greenwich Village is not Connecticut. College is hard, and she gets depressed. She's not doing well, and she goes and she sees a therapist, and who gives her an antidepressant, and antidepressant makes her feel really good. Really good. And she spirals into mania. And when she comes out of the mania, she's diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and it's about what happens. This is super on point. I have a very dear friend whose daughter is struggling with this. It is heartbreaking. And I'm telling you, this is going to touch a nerve and be a big book. Okay. Book 18 is The Queens of Crime by Marie Benedict. It's coming out on February 11th, and it's in the mystery handout. Marie Benedict, probably many of you have read her. She writes great historical fiction. Her vig is women who have been overshadowed by the men in their lives. That's who she's interested in. So she's written a great historical fiction about Churchill's wife, Clementine. She's written The Personal Librarian, was about the woman who created J.P. Morgan's library. But nobody knows about her. They only think about him. That's her thing, right? Carnegie's Maid, exactly, same idea. I'm drinking this glass. This book is a little bit of a departure, and the reason it's on this list is that it has a 250,000 first print. So you obviously know now, because I've told you what the publishers think about this book. It's a mystery that features, it's set in London in 1930 and features the Queens, titled The Queens of Crime. So the 1930s were the heyday, the golden age of crime novels. Agatha Christie obviously was a big deal. Dorothy Sayers, Nigel Marsh, Marjorie Ellingham, and Baroness Emma Orczy. If you like crime and you haven't read them, read them. Those are incredible writers of incredible books. And in this book, they are overshadowed by their male counterparts, and they form a secret society. They get together, they're competitors, obviously, but they get together and decide that they are going to solve a mystery, and that's going to show the men that they are worth it, right? And there's a crime. An English nurse went to Paris with a friend on the ferry, and on the way back, she disappears. And her body is found months later. She's been murdered, and her body is found in the woods, and they decide they're going to solve the crime. Okay, so that is the book. Marie Benedict is already a very successful author, but this is the one I think that's going to be a breakout for her. Two more. Ann Tyler. Ann Tyler is in the same category with Elizabeth Strout and Ann Patchett. If she writes a book, it's notable. She keeps saying she's going to retire and stop writing. I hope she never does. If you haven't read her, come see me and I'll tell you where to begin. This new one is coming out on February 11th. It's in literary fiction. 3 days in June. The 3 days. I love everything about this plot summary. The main character is a woman whose daughter is getting married. The 3 days are the day before the wedding, the day of the wedding, and the day after the wedding. She's just lost her job. Her ex-husband shows up on her doorstep uninvited, without a place to stay and without anything to wear to the wedding. The mother of the groom is taking all the bridal party for a spa day. She has not been invited. This is the book I cannot wait to read, okay? It's Ann Tyler. She's a genius. She's a genius. Everyone will be reading this. Okay, last book, and I know I'm rushing because I'm aware of the time. Book number 20, We All Live Here by Jojo Moyes, which is also coming out on February 11th and is in the other fiction handout. Jojo Moyes is a British writer. She's a mega successful, her books are bestsellers. Probably her best known book is Me Before You, which was made into a wonderful movie, and she wrote 2 sequels to that. The book club, if you're in the Thursday night book club, we read The Giver of Stars earlier this year. It was the first time she really did historical fiction. The reason I know this is going to be a big book is that it is coming out simultaneously in the US and the UK on the same day. That never happens. She's British, so usually her books come out there first and then in the US later. Coming out in both countries on February 11th. Here's the plot. A woman named Lila, who is a best-selling author. She's written a huge book about the ways to keep your marriage alive and successful. She's divorced. Her ex-husband is with another woman and she sees him all over social media. She has 2 daughters. The older one is skipping school and she doesn't know it. The younger one, who is 9, is very precocious and very hard to handle. Her mother has just died. She lives with her stepfather, who is kind but very old-fashioned. And she has a dog named Truant, which I love. And the book opens with the dog biting an American actor who has showed up on their door. And the American actor is her father, who left her and her mother 35 years ago, and who she has barely seen since. And he comes into their household, and it is about what happened. It will be a bestseller. Okay. Woo! There are your, I'm going to keep repeating. Those are your 20 notables. Now, if you've been here before and on Zoom, I want you to participate. This is the question. The 20 books are at the library. All of them are in, and they're on the shelf, but you're only allowed to take out one. Share. Which one do you take out first? Which is the one you want to read first? Come on. Richard Osman. Ina Garten over here. 3 days in June, and Tyler. We Solve Murders, another Richard Osman over here. Queen of Crimes or Marie Benedict here. Who else?
More or less Maddie.
More or less Maddie, Lisa Geneva, great. Great.
Ina on Zoom.
Ina on Zoom, big props for Ina.
Yeah.
Another Ina over there. Ann Tyler, big vote for Ann Tyler, yes. Everyone, I love that. We saw another Richard Osman in the back. What else?
Matt Haig and Sally Rooney.
Matt Haig and Sally Rooney. Put the books on hold. The books are in. Matt Haig, we have 2 copies. My copy is going back out, so everyone will be able to read it. I will buy more if we need it. Questions? Comments? Cheers. Cheers. Thank you on Zoom. Thank you. Take another glass of wine, take a cookie, take a brownie. Don't watch the debate. Don't watch the debate. Have fun. Go read a book. Go read a book. Thank you, guys. The handouts are in the back. Go take the handouts. Go take the handouts. We've got enough for everybody.